as soon as this comes up. Well, g'day everyone, it's Wesley here from Business Blessings, and we're continuing on our interviewing of everyone attending our Sell breakfast. So today I've got Russell Hamlet from Upright Business Solutions. So Russell, welcome to our Facebook Live.
Thanks, Wes. Glad to be here.
Russell, tell us a bit about you and a bit about what you're doing in business.
It's always awkward when people say, tell us a little about you. It's kind of like...
I know. What do you say? I get that.
Look, I think I always kind of say that kind of almost is boring. I think that, you know, if I talk just briefly, I'm a husband and father. I live in Brisbane. I have a lot of different passions in my life. But yeah, just from I suppose a value adding point of view, I am a small business problem solver. It's probably how I like to word it in a quick form. And I'm really passionate about it. I love helping small business owners because quite often they are able to get the most traction in the broadest scheme of business sizes. Small and medium business owners are able to make decisions fast and see results fast. So I just love that engagement at that level.
Yeah, and that's so true. And Russ, can I say, like, having known you for many years now, you are an expert problem solver. You like to get stuck into something, and you like a bull terrier. You don't let go until the problem's solved, which is one of your key strengths, I think, in doing that. So, Russ, tell us, what are some of the different things that you do with your clients? Like, what does an ideal client look like for you, and what kind of services do you provide to clients?
Yeah, sure. So my ideal client is someone that is obviously a small business owner. Majority of my clients I've worked with are industrial clients. However, you know, there's really no limitation there because, in my view, business is business. Whether you sell a service or a product, you know, business to business, businesses as such are really doing the same thing across the board. It's just at different scales, or we're in different niches, really. So from my point of view, you know, every business has people in it. Every business needs processes and systems. So there's really no differences there. But I suppose a lot of industrial clients prefer to come to me because of my industrial and engineering background. With my services, you know, the general term that people ask, you know, well, what is it that you specifically do? Management consulting is the broader term. Obviously, there's a lot of management consulting niches within that broader umbrella term. But really, I suppose from my point of view, I see it as I like to get in and help people with, you know, face-to-face process. You know, from task, process, and systems, just working within that small business to help them find those the best efficiencies or the best pathways to becoming highly profitable. That's really all it is. But with one slight difference, you know, for the most part, really good leaders in business recognise that people are the key to their businesses, and they invest in those people. That's really one of my biggest differences. I see that, you know, people are your number one appreciating asset, and unless you treat them as such, you'll have a high turnover. So whether that's in employees, whether that's in clients, or whether that's with suppliers, it doesn't really matter. You must treat people effectively like you want to be treated. Otherwise, you just won't see retention long term.
You know, is that old saying, old biblical term, you know, treat others how you would like to be treated yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very key thing that coming in. So Russ, before we talked about two things. One was about onboarding clients and doing that correctly. And I don't think we see that happening. So what's your ideas around how to onboard a client in the right way?
So typically people understand the term onboarding employees or workers within an organizational business. So, you know, I think for the most part, businesses understand what that means, just, you know, through you know, maybe working with labour hire companies, working with HR departments, using the right systems or processes to vet the right employee, to, you know, to interview, all of those standard things. I think we all understand that side of things. if we now put that into a client perspective, so when we onboard a new client, quite often we're so excited that we've got a new client knocking on the door that we don't tend to have something that that onboards them nicely from a way of relationship, from risk point of view, from a business risk point of view, from I suppose long-term looking down the track from sales right through to, if we want to use the dirty term, debt collection. That whole process quite often is in my experience, I see that as quite a big messy area, and I have a real passion to make clarity in that area for customers. So, from my point of view, onboarding a client is as simple as understanding that when you're engaging a client, you want to make sure that typically it's an education process for the client as they're coming on board with you, much like it's an education process for you as a supplier, if you want to call yourself that, the vendor or whatever, working with the client. They have expectations as well. So what you're doing is you're opening up I suppose a two-stage or a dual economy within that onboarding process. Quite often as suppliers, if people have that mentality of I'm a supplier, what they do is they just accept what's being given to them from the client's point of view, and they just run with it, and that increases their risk phenomenally within the business. Usually, it doesn't allow for I suppose a bonding of through communication and relationship with that client past the sales end. So that quite often the client will leave at sales or operations or the more the revenue end of the whole game for the supplier. That's where everyone seems to focus. But once it gets past, the product or the service has been delivered, then it gets, through the organisation to the point where now the debtor, the client has become what we call the debtor, and it's now time for them to pay according to your terms. Quite often, what I'm seeing is businesses feel a little bit sheepish about asking for their money, or having even systems in place to have that automated to a point where that process is a lot smoother and doesn't create that kind of prickly circumstance where you're now talking with the client about, hey, we've agreed on these terms, you haven't paid, what's going on? And or worse, I've seen some customers walk away from arrangements simply because the way they've been treated by the wrong accounts clerk or a debt collection agency, when it makes no sense, absolutely no sense for businesses to spend so much money earning a client in marketing and sales techniques, cultivating that relationship, to have someone or a whole process not manage that right through to payment. So that's one of the biggest issues.
So debt collection is a huge issue in small businesses. Like we often talk about the fact that cash is king, and without cash flowing, and a number of people could be outlaying quite a lot of money upfront to supply someone or to provide services for them. So, but then people freeze in this debt collection thing. So what are some quick helpful tips that you can give people in this whole thing so it is a seamless process right from start to finish? Yeah,
so that's fantastic. So one of the things that comes up a lot, we're seeing a lot in business feeds, is for small and medium enterprise. We're seeing a lot of accounting packages like Xero, MyOb, Intuit. There's a myriad of different ones coming out nearly every day now. But one of the biggest things with any accounting system, I want to start here because this seems to be where a lot of businesses focus. They seem to put a lot of financial and emotional effort into this end, and it's important to do that. But if you're investing in an area of cloud or enterprise software that isn't supporting your credit policy, that isn't supporting your terms and conditions, that isn't supporting that educational or relationship-focused approach, then I would challenge you, are you with the right accounting package? So one of the examples is, I myself am a Xero user as a small business. One of the things that I love about Xero is they've got some fantastic engagement I suppose little reminders for clients when they hit certain times. And if you haven't set that up already as a zero user, do it now. That's one of the practical tips. And if you're using any other cloud software or enterprise software that has automated reminder options or features, most definitely use that. I want to start there, but that's not normally the number one issue. That's just something that's a very practical, easy way to manage it. If I go right upstream to where you first meet a client, the first thing I would say is educate the client on what the expectations are of the relationship. So, people talk about terms and conditions. Yes, they're important, but sometimes the proposal or the sales agreement that you offer them, or the quote or the estimate, sometimes it's about just educating them on the simple things in a short form. So within that engagement document, they're saying, please price us on this service or this product. It's a matter of just giving them what they're looking for, but also giving them, say, the top 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 frequently asked terms and conditions questions, or things that would normally create problems later on downstream with the accounts system, if you want to call it that. So just addressing those upstream, talking about those early, and then having a policy in place, a credit policy that firmly outlines what your expectations are for the arrangement. So both client and supplier understand whose obligations are what, but then internally within the supply chain person, so the supplier or the product manufacturer, whatever you are, having something that allows your staff internally to know the process from A to Z, because that's one of the other areas is education within the business. It's easy for the boss to come in and say, have you called this person? Have you done this? Have you done that? To me, that's not leveraging your time well. It's not time efficient. It's kind of a poor leadership perspective to be doing that. It's micromanaging. So what you need to do is get to a place where you spend the time once creating a credit policy that links to your terms and conditions of trade, as well as educating the staff internally within your business as to what you expect from A to Z managing that client or that debtor. Once those things are in place, it makes for a much easier process and a lower risk approach to the financial side of the business. In all of the 3.25 years now I've been running my own consultancy, I've had, I think, 2 clients, do the normal thing, which is not pay on time, those kinds of things. And all I did was went back to those clients individually and just had a nice call, just as a phone call to them and said, hey, have you noticed my automated reminders? Yes, I have. Okay. Do you remember the proposal I sent you? It talked about these things, and that was the arrangement you selected. So I have a terms and conditions selection criteria. So they chose their own terms and conditions for my services. So I said, remember, you chose these T's and C's. This is what you asked for your payment terms. Yes, I remember that. Look, I've just noticed it's not being done. Is there anything that I can do to help you achieve that? Just having that open conversation. This is not about wrapping someone over the knuckles. It's not about holding them accountable or grabbing them by the collar. This is about furthering that business development relationship, actually talking to that contact, saying, what is it that I can do to help you be clearer with our arrangement? And I think 99% of the time, once you do that once, those clients are on board.
Yeah.
So I did it once with one client, on board, never had a problem again. The second client, I had to do it twice. And then I realised it wasn't about him trying to stop payments. It was about him he was micromanaging his accounts people. He wasn't actually allowing that to follow his own process. He was handbraking that on the way through. So what I did is I just said, look, it's clear to me that the process within your organisation is not flowing as smoothly as you need it to be, because it's costing you time to manage this. So why don't you throw that off and allow that to go directly through to the right person? So who else do I need to add to that email trail to make sure that it gets to the right person in the right amount of time so that you can pay on time? And then very quickly he just replied and said, oh, okay, well, CC this person. It'll help me. It'll help you get paid faster. Let's do it. Problem solved. So they're just a couple of examples. Now, sure, you're going to get, in my view, a 1%. If you do the process right, if the whole system's set up correctly, I still think there's still those opportunities for what we would call an unsavory client to do something that's not very nice. Pretend there's a problem with an invoice or dispute something just to hold up those payment terms. Or even worse, someone that had never intended to pay. There's always going to be those kinds of people in business. The reality is having a systemized approach to how you onboard a client, in my experience, removes 99% of them.
Yeah.
And you've just got to then be prepared as the business owner to say, you know what? I don't need that 1% holding me up in my business, causing more stress, causing more strife, putting my business at risk. It's actually being wise with that onboarding process and sticking to the system. It's about following the procedures, the processes and the procedures that you've actually set up with some forethought, and not making an exception when you see the flags go up. So as soon as those flags start going up, you need to action those things, but then you need to make a decision. What do we do from here? Do we continue this? Is education going to work? And this is just the 1%ers. This is not the 99% of clients. This is just the 1%ers. You need to then decide, do I need this client? I know that's a tough thing for small businesses, but sometimes, in my experience with some really dodgy clients, it is the best advice I can give small business. If you have someone that you know is riding you and doing the wrong thing, honestly, end the relationship. It's not worth it.
And that's, it's actually okay to sack a client. And some people don't think it is. Okay, so Russ, just to wrap things up here.
Yes.
So it sounds like you're really good about, and I know you're really good because I know you are, you're really good about going in and saying, okay, let's pull your systems apart, and like starting with your whole thing of how you do your quoting and right through to the whole, how everything works from go to woe, and there's value in having someone from outside the organization come in and look at that with fresh eyes, because a lot of people have been doing that for many, many years. They think it's worked. Some people say, well, it's not broken, let's not fix it. But the reality is that a lot of people can go to a whole new level by just actually taking the time to look at those systems.
Yeah, look, my number one piece of advice is, even if you don't hire a management consultant like me, even if you have a mother or a father or a brother or sister or best friend or someone that is in this space, or that someone, maybe a lawyer that you're getting to look at your contracts, your terms and conditions, preferably someone professional. Don't ever try to hire anybody that's not specialized for that field. But the reality is, get advice, get support. It doesn't hurt to get 3 or 4 opinions, 5 or 6 opinions on a topic if you're struggling with it in business. It's completely, you still get to make the choice at the end as to what you do with it. It's just simply getting that advice and going broader. My number one piece of advice is just be prepared and open to ask people for support in your business, even if it's not at the start a management consultant, but certainly, once you're serious, you're ready to actually get real traction within your business, hire the right person that fits your business model, that measures up to your values as a person. That's the number one thing that I say to all the clients. Don't hire me if I don't align with your values, because at some stage we're gonna not agree on something that's pivotal. So definitely look at whoever you know and trust in some kind of advice field that certainly matches your value base. That's going to be probably a sound investment to make some traction in your business.
That's great. So Russ, how do people contact you?
Look, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I've got my own website, obviously all the standard channels, Instagram, whatever.
What's the name of your website?
Upright Business Solutions. So uprightbusinesssolutions.com.au.
Okay, that's what I was after. Yeah.
That's it. That's easy.
And then they just search for Russell Hamlet on LinkedIn and Facebook and the like, and you can be there.
All the standard channels, yep.
Excellent. That's great. Well, thanks so much, Russ. I trust that this has been helpful for others, and it's been great to hear your thinking on things as well.
All right. Thanks for your time. I hope so. Yeah.